It started on a Wednesday, an ordinary evening, at least that's what I told myself. The kind of night where you don't expect anything unusual to happen. It was around 8 p.m., and I was still at the office, finishing up the last few reports of the day. My boss had dropped in earlier to tell me he'd be out of town the next few days, leaving me with more work than I needed. I wasn't complaining. It's just the way things go sometimes. It wasn't my first time staying late. But then, just as I was about to pack up and head home, I got a message from her. "Can you pick up dinner on your way home? I'll be working late on a project with a colleague. Don't wait up for me." I stared at the message, my mind racing. There was nothing in her tone that sounded out of the ordinary, but something about it struck me as off. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I felt that nagging sensation in the back of my mind. I knew she had been working with that guy, Adam, for the last few weeks on a project that was supposed to impress the higher-ups. They were getting closer to the deadline, and naturally, she'd mentioned how much time they'd need to spend on it. But tonight? A Wednesday night. Why so late? I wasn't the paranoid type, but something about this felt different. I had never been a controlling husband, never one to hover over her, asking too many questions. I trusted her. But after what had happened earlier this week, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more going on. It wasn't the first time I'd felt uneasy, but tonight was different. Instead of replying right away, I stared at her message for a while, contemplating whether I should say something or just let it go. It wasn't like her to ask me not to wait up. She always called me when she was running late or, at the very least, texted an update. But not tonight. I finally typed back, "Sure, I'll grab some pizza. Hope the project with Adam goes well. Let me know when you're done." The message sent, but my mind was still racing. I couldn't help but feel like there was something I was missing. The silence that followed her response felt almost calculated. I tried to shake it off, but by the time I got home, I was still on edge. The lights were off when I stepped through the door. No greeting, no sound. I hung my jacket in the hallway and made my way to the kitchen. A few cold pizza slices were sitting on the counter, but Eleanor, she wasn't there. I glanced around, wondering where she could have gone. It wasn't like her to leave the house so quietly. Then I saw it. Her phone was lying on the couch. The same phone that was supposed to be with her at the office. She never left it behind. Never. I could feel my stomach tighten as I picked it up, wondering why she hadn't answered my last text. I sat down on the couch, the phone warm in my hand, and unlocked it. The screen lit up with a few unread messages. I didn't intend to snoop, but something was pulling me to look. The first was from her coworker, Adam. "Just a heads up, I'll be late too. Don't leave until I get back." The message was innocent enough, right? But it didn't sit well with me. Why would she leave her phone here if she was still at the office? Was she really working late on the project? Or was something else going on? I felt a strange sense of dread creeping over me. I had never been the jealous type, never felt insecure in our relationship. But this felt different. I heard a car pull into the driveway, and my heart skipped a beat. The door opened, and I quickly stuffed her phone back on the couch, not wanting to be caught snooping. But as soon as she walked in, I knew something wasn't right. Her eyes were wide, almost too wide. She looked startled, like she had just seen a ghost. "Hey," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You're home early. I didn't expect you yet." I nodded, trying to mask my confusion. "Yeah, I thought I'd grab the pizza. How's the project going with Adam?" Her eyes flickered for just a second, almost imperceptibly, but it didn't go unnoticed. She quickly looked away and forced a smile. "It's going well. We've got a few more things to finish up tomorrow." I tried to stay calm, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. The tension between us felt thick, almost suffocating. Something had shifted, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I needed to know the truth. But was I ready to face it? The air between us felt heavier than usual. I could see that Eleanor was doing everything she could to avoid eye contact. She was acting differently, more distant than I'd ever seen her. But instead of pressing her, I decided to let things unfold naturally. I didn't want to seem overly suspicious, even though everything inside me was screaming that something wasn't right. I sat down on the couch and began to eat my pizza, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling in my stomach. Eleanor joined me a few minutes later, sitting on the edge of the couch with a glass of wine. She didn't seem like herself. There was a tightness in her posture, like she was bracing for something. "How was your day?" I asked, trying to sound casual, hoping to break the silence. She looked at me briefly before taking a sip of wine. "It was fine," she said, her voice flat, almost robotic. Busy but fine. I nodded, not wanting to press her too much, but the words were bubbling up inside me. Why are you so distant? Why won't you tell me what's really going on? But I held back, not wanting to create an argument that wasn't there. Or was it? Was I imagining things, or was she pulling away from me? As we sat there, a few minutes of uncomfortable silence passed. It felt like the clock on the wall was ticking louder than usual. My mind kept drifting back to that message I had received from her earlier. Don't wait up for me. Why did she say that? It wasn't like her. She knew how I hated being kept in the dark. My gaze fell on her phone again, still sitting on the coffee table. It was almost as if it was calling to me, taunting me with unanswered questions. I wasn't the kind of person to invade someone's privacy, but something inside me just couldn't ignore the feeling that I was being left out of the picture. I had to know what she wasn't telling me. Without thinking, I reached for the phone. Eleanor's eyes snapped to mine immediately, her body going rigid. She didn't say anything, but I could see the panic rising in her expression. My fingers hovered over the screen, and I could feel the weight of her gaze burning into me. For a moment, I considered putting it back down, but the curiosity was too strong. What are you doing? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, feeling the tension in the room spike. I'm just checking something, I muttered, as if that was an excuse. The truth was, I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find, but I knew that whatever it was, I couldn't back down now. I unlocked the phone, my fingers trembling slightly, and the first thing I saw was a text from Adam. It was from earlier in the day, just before she'd left for the office seminar. You sure you're still up for dinner tonight? I know the seminar's wrapping up late, but we could grab something afterward. I froze. The message was innocent enough, but why hadn't she mentioned it? Why hadn't she told me that she was meeting Adam after the seminar? I'd never felt more exposed in my life, but I couldn't stop myself from reading more. Can't wait to see you again. I'll meet you at the usual spot around 10. The usual spot? That hit me like a ton of bricks. Eleanor had been lying to me. She hadn't just been working late. She was meeting Adam, again. I looked up at her, my heart pounding in my chest. She was staring at me now, her face pale. Why didn't you tell me about meeting Adam? I asked, my voice unsteady. It wasn't even an accusation. It was more of a plea for her to come clean. Eleanor's eyes flickered with panic, and I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to find a way to explain herself. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. The silence was deafening. I didn't think it was important, she finally said, but her voice wavered. Not important. I felt a surge of frustration. I wanted to yell, to demand answers, but instead, I kept my voice steady. You've been meeting him for weeks now, and I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me, Eleanor? Her eyes filled with tears, but she quickly wiped them away. I never meant for you to find out like this. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shook my head, trying to process what was happening. I don't understand. Why all the secrecy? Why the lies? I asked, my voice cracking. This wasn't the woman I had married. She had always been so open, so trustworthy. But now, everything felt like a lie. She took a deep breath, her shoulders sagging in defeat. It wasn't supposed to happen like this, she muttered, almost to herself. I didn't mean to hurt you. I could barely look at her. I felt betrayed, not just by her actions, but by the way she had been hiding this from me. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone who was keeping secrets from me. There was so much I wanted to say, but nothing seemed to make sense. My mind was spinning, and I wasn't sure where to go from here. I needed answers, and she had to give them to me. But as I stared at her, I realized I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself. How had I missed all of the signs? How had I let it get this far? Eleanor sat there, her body slumped, looking defeated. The tears that had glistened in her eyes had begun to dry, but there was still a shadow in them, one that made me feel like I was staring at a stranger. She wasn't the woman I had married. This was someone else. I leaned back against the couch, trying to make sense of everything. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the frustration building up inside me. Every time I thought I understood what was going on, the pieces just didn't fit together. She had lied to me. She'd been meeting Adam behind my back, and all the while, I had been sitting here, trusting her, believing in her. I need to understand, Eleanor. What's been going on? Why did you lie to me? My voice was steadier than I felt, but inside, everything was unraveling. I never imagined I'd be in this situation. I never thought she could hide something like this from me. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered, her voice trembling. It just happened. I didn't plan for it. I stared at her, trying to grasp her words, but it was like they didn't make any sense. What happened? What didn't you plan for? I asked, desperate for clarity. Eleanor shifted uncomfortably on the couch, taking a deep breath before looking up at me. Adam, he's been helping me with the project. But it wasn't just work. We got close, and I didn't know how to handle it, so I kept it from you. I'm sorry. I blinked, trying to process what she was saying. We got close. This was more than just a little office friendship. This was a betrayal. My mind was flooded with thoughts I didn't want to have, but I couldn't stop them. Was she in love with him? Did she want something more from him than just a work connection? You're telling me you've been hiding this from me because you didn't know how to handle it? My voice rose, but I quickly controlled it, not wanting to escalate things more than they already were. I was angry, furious, really, but I needed answers. The more I tried to keep calm, the more the questions seemed to flood in. How long has this been going on, Eleanor? She closed her eyes for a moment, her fingers tightly gripping the edge of the couch. A few months, she admitted softly, almost in a whisper. It started slowly. We spent more time together at work. We talked about our lives, and one thing led to another. The weight of her words hit me like a freight train. A few months. She had been lying to me for that long. All the late nights, the meetings with Adam, everything started to make sense, but the reality of it still didn't fully hit. How could you do this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. How could you lie to me for months? I'm sorry, she repeated, her voice breaking. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't know how to stop it. I didn't know how to tell you. The silence between us grew thick, suffocating. I couldn't look at her anymore. The woman I had trusted, the one I had shared my life with, was sitting next to me, admitting that she had betrayed me. Everything I thought I knew about our relationship felt like a lie. What does this mean for us? The question escaped my lips before I could stop it. I didn't even know what I was asking. What could it mean for us now? Could I trust her again? Could I forgive her for what she'd done? She shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know if we can fix this. I don't even know if I can fix this. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to make sense of everything. I felt like I was losing control. I had always been the one to keep things steady, to maintain balance. But now, everything was crumbling in front of me. Every time I thought I understood what was happening, the floor fell out from under me. I turned to face her again. So what now? What do we do? She didn't have an answer. She just sat there, looking broken, and I didn't know what to do next. I didn't know if I wanted to hear any more excuses. I didn't know if I wanted to stay in this toxic mess, trying to salvage something that felt like it was beyond repair. The truth was, I didn't know if I could forgive her. But there was something else, something more insidious that was starting to creep into my thoughts. What if this wasn't just about Adam? What if there were others? This had started with a small lie, one that spiraled out of control. How many more lies were buried beneath the surface? How much more had she hidden from me? I wasn't ready to find out yet, but I had a feeling that, soon, the truth would reveal itself. The question was, would I be ready to face it? The silence stretched between us, thick and oppressive. Eleanor sat there, eyes cast downward, too ashamed to meet my gaze. I was pacing around the living room, trying to make sense of everything, but nothing made sense. Her words echoed in my head. It started slowly. One thing led to another. But that wasn't the whole truth, was it? It wasn't just a slow build-up. It was betrayal. She had betrayed me, and no amount of excuses or apologies would change that. But then, in the silence, a new thought crept in. What now? Where do we go from here? Could I trust her again? Could I even look at her the same way? The woman I married, my partner in this life, had been hiding this from me, and now, I wasn't sure if I knew her at all. I stopped pacing and turned to face her. So, was it just Adam? Or is there more I need to know? The question came out sharper than I intended, but I had to know. If she had been hiding Adam from me, what else had she hidden? What else had she kept in the shadows, away from my prying eyes? She froze, her body stiffening, and I could see the panic creeping back into her face. She looked like a deer caught in headlights, her mouth opening and closing as if she were trying to find the right words. No, I swear, it was just him, she said, her voice shaky. It was just Adam and I. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I didn't believe her. I couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. She was sitting there, telling me she hadn't meant for it to happen, but the fact was it had. She had let it happen. I shook my head in disbelief. You're telling me that after everything we've been through, you didn't think to tell me about him? About what was really going on? I couldn't understand it. I wanted to, but the more she spoke, the more I realized that the trust we'd built was gone. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. The last thing I needed was her touch right now. I needed space. I needed to think. I don't want to lose you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I love you, and I know what I did was wrong. I've been stupid. I didn't know how to tell you the truth, but I do now. I don't want to lose everything. I stood there, conflicted. Part of me wanted to walk away. Part of me wanted to shut down, to close my heart off from the pain. But another part of me, a part one didn't even recognize anymore, wanted to hear her out. I wanted to know why. Why had she done this? Why hadn't she trusted me enough to be honest? Do you love him? The question slipped out before I could stop it. My voice was quieter now, more defeated. The words hung in the air, thick with anticipation. My breath caught in my throat as I waited for her response, but I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears again, and this time, she didn't look away. She met my gaze, her face crumpling in anguish. No, she said, her voice barely audible. I don't love him. I never did. It was a mistake. I let things get out of hand, and now I don't know how to fix it. Her words, though full of pain and regret, didn't comfort me. They didn't take away the sharp, jagged pain in my chest. If anything, they only made it worse. She had let it get out of hand. She had crossed a line I never thought we'd reach. And now, here we were, sitting in the wreckage of our relationship, trying to figure out if there was any way to salvage it. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me again. How could she sit there and tell me it was just a mistake? A mistake doesn't carry on for months. A mistake doesn't involve texting late at night, planning dinners, meeting up behind your husband's back. You don't get it, Eleanor, I said, my voice shaking now with frustration. This isn't just a mistake. It's a betrayal. You didn't just make a mistake. You lied to me. You kept secrets. And now, I don't know what to believe anymore. She opened her mouth to respond, but I held up my hand. No, don't say anything. I need time to think. I can't do this right now. I don't know how to process all of this. I turned and walked away from her, not looking back. The last thing I needed was to listen to more of her excuses. I needed to be alone. I needed to figure out what to do with this mess she'd created. My mind was spinning, and I couldn't make sense of any of it. I walked to the bedroom, slamming the door behind me, and collapsed onto the bed. I stared at the ceiling, trying to calm my racing heart. How had we gotten here? Everything had been fine just a few months ago. Or at least, I thought it was. Now, I was left questioning everything I knew. Could I ever trust her again? Could we fix this, or was this the end of the road for us? But there was something else gnawing at me, something deeper. If she could hide this from me, what else had she kept in the dark? The truth felt like a shadow hanging over me, and I knew that sooner or later, it would all come out. And when it did, I wasn't sure I was ready to face it. I spent the next few hours lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to block out the reality of what had just unfolded. Eleanor hadn't followed me to the bedroom. I could hear her moving around in the living room, her footsteps light and tentative, like she was unsure of what to do next. But I didn't want to think about her right now. I couldn't. The thoughts swirling in my head were too loud, too painful. My mind kept replaying the same questions over and over again. How long had this been going on? Was it just Adam? Was she really telling me everything? The uncertainty was eating me alive. Every time I tried to silence my thoughts, another one would creep in, deeper and darker than before. What else was she hiding? Eventually, I heard the soft creak of the bedroom door, and there she was, standing in the doorway. Eleanor's silhouette was framed by the dim light from the hallway, and for a moment, I just looked at her, too numb to say anything. She hadn't said much after I walked away from her in the living room. The silence between us had stretched so far, it almost felt like a physical wall separating us. I didn't know where else to go, she said softly, stepping into the room. Her voice was barely a whisper, as though she was scared that saying anything too loud would shatter the fragile air between us. I didn't want to leave you like this. I don't know how to fix this. I didn't move. I didn't even want to look at her, but I could feel the weight of her words pressing down on me. What are you trying to fix, Eleanor? I asked, my voice thick with frustration. You can't just say you're sorry and expect everything to go back to normal. That's not how this works. She nodded, her eyes welling with tears. I know. I didn't think it would get this far. I never meant for you to find out like this. But it's the truth, and I have to face it. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she had hurt me, how deeply this betrayal cut into everything I believed in. But instead, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, trying to collect my thoughts. My chest felt tight, like there was a weight pressing down on me that I couldn't lift. You need to leave, I said, my voice hoarse, barely audible. I didn't want to say it, but I had to. I needed space. Time to think. Time to process. The air in this room felt suffocating, and I couldn't breathe with her standing there. For a moment, Eleanor didn't say anything. She just stood there, her face a mixture of confusion and pain. She seemed to be searching for something in my expression, some sign that I hadn't completely given up on her. But I had nothing to give her. My heart was too broken, too torn between wanting to believe her and knowing that I couldn't. I'll leave, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'll give you space. But I'll be back tomorrow, whenever you're ready to talk. I want to make things right. I don't want to lose you. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The words I wanted to say were stuck in my throat. Instead, I listened to the soft sound of her footsteps retreating back to the living room. Then there was the quiet click of the door as it closed behind her. And with that, the room went silent. But the silence didn't bring peace. It was oppressive, heavy, as if the weight of everything I had learned was pressing down on me, and I didn't know how to escape it. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, trying to fight off the tears that were threatening to spill. The pain was almost physical. How could she have done this to me? How could I have been so blind to the signs? The more I thought about it, the more questions piled up. The lies, the secrecy, the late nights she had spent with Adam, and how much she had hidden from me. How much of our life together was a lie. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the thoughts that kept racing through my mind. I needed answers. I needed the truth. But the more I thought about the truth, the more uncertain I became. What if the truth wasn't something I could handle? What if it wasn't just Adam? What if there were others? What if she had been living this double life for much longer than I had realized? I wanted to confront her. I wanted to demand answers, to scream at her and tell her how much she had hurt me. But something inside me stopped me. Something told me that maybe I wasn't ready to face the full extent of what had happened. Maybe, just maybe, I wasn't ready to hear the truth. But tomorrow would be a different story. I would find out everything. I had to, because if I didn't, I'd never be able to move on. And that terrified me more than anything else. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out into the night. The streets were empty, bathed in the soft glow of the streetlights. Everything seemed so still, so calm. But inside, my mind was a whirlwind. Nothing felt real anymore. The truth was waiting for me, and I was going to have to face it. The next morning came too quickly. The world outside was bathed in soft morning light, and I could hear the faint chirp of birds outside the window. But inside, nothing felt right. Eleanor had left the house early, leaving me to wrestle with my thoughts and the weight of everything that had transpired. She had promised to come back later, but I wasn't sure I wanted to face her again. Not yet. Not until I had some time to think. I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of lukewarm coffee in front of me that I hadn't even touched. The truth was sitting there, like a stone in my chest, making it hard to breathe. I hadn't slept much the night before. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, her tear-filled eyes, the way she admitted to everything. The lies. The deception. I was living in a nightmare of my own making, and the worst part was that I wasn't sure if I could wake up from it. My mind kept drifting back to Adam. She had insisted that there was nothing between them, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that there was more. It wasn't just the late-night texts, the secret dinners. They were just symptoms of something much deeper, something darker. I had to know the full story, even if it meant confronting things I wasn't prepared to face. I grabbed my phone, my fingers trembling as I unlocked it. The first thing I did was check the text messages from Eleanor. There it was, clear as day. Don't wait up for me tonight. I'll be working late. The same message she'd sent me the night before everything had fallen apart. But there was more beneath the surface. Can't wait to see you again. I'll meet you at the usual spot. The usual spot. That phrase kept repeating in my head, echoing like a distant bell. I knew where she was talking about. The old bar downtown, the one they'd often gone to after work. It had always seemed like an innocent spot to grab a drink. But now, it felt like a symbol of everything I had missed. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I knew I had to do something. I couldn't sit here any longer, letting my mind spin in circles. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I left the house, my steps quick and determined. The world outside was waking up, but I felt detached from it, like I was moving through a dream. My thoughts were consumed with what Eleanor had said the night before. She had claimed that it was just a mistake, that she never intended for things to go as far as they did. But how could she believe that? How could she justify everything she had done as a mistake? The bar was just a few blocks away. I'd been there 100 times, but this time, it felt different. The streets that had always felt familiar now seemed foreign, unsettling. My chest tightened as I approached the entrance. The bar was quiet this early in the day, the lights dim, the door creaking open as I stepped inside. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to find, but I knew I had to look. I made my way to the back of the bar, where I'd seen her and Adam talking before. The tables were mostly empty, but there was a quiet hum in the air that felt like tension. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe I thought I'd see something that would confirm all my suspicions. But all I saw was an empty seat by the window. Nothing out of the ordinary. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel the heat rising in my face. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I had already made up my mind about what had happened without the full picture. But then I saw it. It was sitting on the table where they had always sat. A small, folded napkin. My eyes immediately went to it. It was strange, but my gut told me to look closer. I walked over, my hands shaking as I picked it up. It was just a simple napkin, but as I unfolded it, I saw a name written on the corner. Adam. It was his handwriting. But there was more. Beneath the name, there was a small note. Same time tomorrow? I stared at the note, my heart racing. It wasn't just a friendly lunch. It wasn't a casual drink after work. This was something deeper, something more intimate. The evidence was right in front of me, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. The anger I had been holding back surged through me, hot and overwhelming. This wasn't just a mistake. This was an affair. Eleanor had been lying to me all along, and I had allowed myself to believe her half-truths, her excuses. I had trusted her, and now, I felt like a fool. I stormed out of the bar, the note still clenched in my hand, my thoughts spiraling faster than I could keep up. I had to confront her. I had to demand the truth. But part of me wasn't sure if I was ready to hear it. Part of me feared that what I would find would destroy everything I had known about our relationship. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about Adam. It was about everything, about the trust one had placed in her, about the life we had built together. And now, I wasn't sure if it was all a lie. I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. The truth was out there, and I was going to find it, no matter how much it hurt. But the more I uncovered, the more I realized that the truth might be something I couldn't bear to face. The drive back home felt like it took forever. Every street, every turn, felt like it was leading me deeper into the storm I had been trying to avoid. The napkin with Adam's handwriting still clenched in my hand burned my fingers, like a tangible reminder of the betrayal I had just uncovered. It was a simple note, really, nothing elaborate. But that's what made it even worse. It wasn't some grand confession. It was just a casual reminder. Same time tomorrow? That's what they'd planned. That's what she had been hiding from me. I didn't even know what I was going to say to Eleanor when I got home. How could I? What could I say that would capture the rage, the hurt, the confusion I was feeling right now? The truth was, I wasn't sure I even knew who she was anymore. Was she the woman I'd married, the woman I'd shared so many years with? Or had I been living with a stranger, someone who had been lying to my face for months? The front door clicked open, and I stepped inside, my shoes heavy against the floor. I could hear the faint sound of her moving around upstairs, probably cleaning up after herself, acting like everything was fine, like nothing had changed. But I knew that everything had changed, and I wasn't going to let her pretend it hadn't. I walked up the stairs, my hand gripping the railing. The note was still in my pocket, crumpled and stained with the sweat of my palm. I didn't even know why I hadn't thrown it away yet. Maybe I was hoping that if I kept it, I'd somehow understand it. Maybe I thought it would give me the answers I was looking for. But there was no clarity in it. There was only betrayal. Eleanor was standing in front of the bathroom mirror when I entered the bedroom. She turned to me, her face pale, But when her eyes met mine, something in them shifted. She knew. She could see it in my face. She could see the storm brewing inside of me. And for the first time in days, she wasn't the one in control. I didn't say anything at first. There was nothing to say. I just pulled the napkin from my pocket and threw it on the bed in front of her. Her eyes darted to it, and for a second, she froze. The color drained from her face. "What is this?" I asked, my voice colder than I had intended. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She took a shaky breath and then slowly reached for the napkin, unfolding it with trembling hands. I watched her, my stomach twisting into knots as she read the words that I had already seen. I could see her reaction, a flash of panic, a split second of guilt, and then she quickly looked away, as if trying to avoid the truth. But it was too late. The truth had already found its way into our lives, and there was no pretending it wasn't there anymore. "Eleanor," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside of me. "Tell me what this is." She lowered her head, her shoulders trembling as if she were on the verge of collapsing. "I didn't want you to find out like this," she whispered, barely audible. "I never meant for you to see that. I didn't want to hurt you." "Didn't want to hurt me?" The words escaped before I could stop them. I was angry, but I wasn't sure if I was angry at her or at myself. "You've been lying to me for months. You've been seeing him behind my back, meeting him in secret, and you didn't think I'd find out? You didn't think this would hurt me?" Her eyes welled with tears, but they didn't change anything. They didn't change the fact that she had betrayed me. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I never meant for it to happen. I got caught up in everything, and I didn't know how to stop." "How to stop?" I practically shouted. I could feel my emotions surging, and no matter how hard I tried to contain them, the words kept coming. "You didn't know how to stop? You had a choice, Eleanor. Every time you met him, every time you texted him, every time you lied to me, you made a choice. And you chose him over me." She collapsed onto the bed, burying her face in her hands, as if trying to shield herself from my anger, from the truth. "I never meant for it to go this far," she sobbed. "I never wanted to lose you. I'm so sorry." But the more she apologized, the more distant she felt. Each apology felt more like an excuse, more like a way to absolve herself of the guilt she had to carry. "Sorry" didn't change the fact that she had crossed a line. "Sorry" didn't erase the months of secrecy. And the more she said it, the more hollow it sounded. I was done listening to the apologies. I needed answers. I needed to know everything. "Tell me everything, Eleanor," I demanded, my voice low and sharp. "Tell me how long it's been going on. Tell me everything you've been hiding from me. I deserve to know." She trembled as if the words were physically painful to say. She sat up, wiping her eyes, and finally looked at me. "It started a few months ago, after the project. Adam and I were working late one night, and one thing led to another. It wasn't supposed to happen, but it did." I could hear the shakiness in her voice, the regret and guilt, but none of that mattered anymore. It didn't change what had happened. It didn't change the fact that she had lied, over and over again, about who she was spending time with and what she was really doing. "So how many times?" I asked, not sure if I wanted the answer. I wasn't sure if I could handle it, but I needed to know. "3 times," she whispered. 3 times in the past few months. But it was never more than that. I swear. 3 times. My heart sank. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. I had been living in a lie. And worse, I had been complicit in it by not seeing what was right in front of me. I couldn't breathe. The air was thick with pain, betrayal, and anger. But what hurt more than anything was the thought of everything we had built together now being shattered. Our life, our marriage, everything we had worked for, reduced to nothing. And as much as I wanted to hate her, as much as I wanted to storm out and never look back, something inside me told me to wait, to listen. Because as much as she had hurt me, as much as I was falling apart, I needed to know everything. I needed to hear it all. But when she spoke again, it wasn't what I expected. It was something far worse. "I don't know if I can undo the damage, but I need to be honest with you," she said, her voice trembling. "There's more I haven't told you." My heart raced as I processed her words. "There's more I haven't told you." The words hung in the air, heavy with dread. I didn't know if I was ready to hear whatever came next. I had already learned more than I could stomach, but the silence in the room was deafening. I had to know. If there was more, if there were still secrets buried beneath the surface, I needed to hear them. I stared at her, trying to steady my breath, to calm the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. She had broken my trust, shattered the foundation of our relationship, but I couldn't walk away without understanding the full picture. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about us. Our future. What we were, or could be, after this. Eleanor looked at me, her face pale, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. She had been holding on to something she hadn't yet shared. The pain in her eyes mirrored the pain in my chest, and for the first time, I saw her vulnerability, raw and exposed. "I didn't just meet Adam," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "There was a time, right after the project started, when I felt disconnected. From you. From us. I thought I was losing myself, losing what we had. And Adam, he was there. He listened. But I made a mistake. I thought I needed something else, something that wasn't in our relationship. But I was wrong. I realized it too late." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I thought she had been selfish, lying to me for months. But now, as she spoke, I could hear the regret in her voice, the deep remorse that went beyond her actions. She wasn't just confessing to an affair. She was confessing to her own loneliness, her own fears of losing herself. I sat down next to her, my anger and hurt still present, but beginning to soften. "Eleanor, you're not losing yourself," I said, my voice gentler than I thought it would be. "But you can't shut me out. You can't keep things from me like this." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks again. "I know. I've been so selfish. I thought that if I kept pretending everything was fine, if I kept up the facade, we could fix everything. But I've hurt you, and now I have to face the consequences." I felt a shift in the room, in my chest. The anger that had once consumed me began to ebb away, replaced by a fragile understanding. It wasn't easy to forgive her, not yet, but I could see now that this wasn't about Adam. It was about us, and about her own fear of losing something she didn't even know she was losing. She wasn't just hiding from me. She was hiding from herself. "We can fix this," I said softly, more to myself than to her. "It's going to take time, Eleanor. It's going to take a lot of work. But we can try." She looked at me, her face filled with a mix of relief and uncertainty. "Do you really think so?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I don't know," I replied honestly. "But we won't know unless we try." I reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away this time. Her grip was firm, as if she was holding on for dear life. And in a way, I guess she was. We were both holding on, trying to salvage something worth saving. "We can start over," I said. "We can rebuild from here. But you need to be honest with me. No more secrets. If we're going to make it, we have to trust each other completely. Do you understand that?" She nodded, her voice soft but determined. "I understand. And I'm ready. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." I took a deep breath, the weight in my chest easing ever so slightly. It wasn't going to be easy. We weren't going to wake up tomorrow and suddenly be okay. But I believed in second chances. I believed that people could change if they were willing to put in the work. "I'm not saying it will be easy," I said, my voice steady. "But we can try, one step at a time." We sat there in silence for a while, the world outside continuing on as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and that was okay. Change was hard, but it was also necessary. It was a part of growing, of moving forward, of learning from the mistakes we'd made. And as the sun began to set, casting a soft glow over the room, I realized something. We didn't have to have everything figured out right now. We didn't have to have all the answers. We just had to take the next step, together. In that moment, I knew that whatever happened next, we would face it as a team. And for the first time in days, I finally allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. We had a long road ahead of us, but it was a road worth traveling. And we would travel it together.